for our first hour, I wanted to. It's been a while since we had our old friend Ravi Batra on, and professor of economics at Southern Methodist University, internationally best-selling author of The New Golden Age: The Coming Revolution Against Political Corruption and Economic Chaos, and Greenspan's Fraud: How 2 decades of his policies have undermined the global economy. His website is Ravi Batra, RaviBatra.com. And so I wanted to get him on for the first hour, and then we'll do Anything Goes Friday for the second and third hour. You can take questions from you if you have any specific ones, although Dr. Batra does not offer investment advice. He's a professor of economics. But let's talk about the economy. Dr. Batra, welcome back.
Thanks a lot. Thanks a lot.
Thanks for joining us. So, it's been a while since we've talked. I'm curious your thoughts on the current state of the economy. I'm hearing stuff that's all over the map.
Well, I have been saying for a while that if we keep doing what we have been doing for the past 4 or 5 years, a lot of government spending and the Federal Reserve bailing out so many businesses, then we'll be stable at the bottom. And so stabilizing at the bottom means very low growth rate, still high level of unemployment. The interesting part is that the Great Recession started in 2007, and now it is 2014. 7 years later, the total employment level is still below what it was in 2006 or 7.
Right.
So, and we have added about $8 or $9 trillion to the national debt in the process. So, it's a very wasteful use of resources, and we are just going to be muddling around at the bottom if we don't do anything else, something else.
What? So this is, kind of a stagnant economy that's just going to stay stagnant? Is that what you're saying?
That's right. It's a stagnant economy. It's going to stay stagnant if we keep doing what we are doing. And if something goes wrong, it could go back into recession. Well, as far as employment is concerned, we are still in recession. Production is very low. Growth is very low. So I don't know what to call it. It's a stagnant economy with employment still in recession.
Right. And what would be your policy prescription for this? If you were, advising the president or leading the Fed, what would you do?
Well, by the way, I'm writing a new book on the same subject that you just mentioned, and the title of my new book is going to be Ending Unemployment in 2 Years.
Whoa!
Right. So it's very easy to unemployment in the U.S. economy. It's going to be tough in Europe and elsewhere, but in the United States, it's very easy because the country has such a huge trade deficit. And the trade deficit is total wastage of consumer demand on foreign products. So if you were to balance your trade, just balancing our trade will create 5 million new manufacturing jobs, just balancing the trade.
Mm-hmm.
And it's very easy to do that. So that would be one thing that I would do.
So would you do that by going back to a tariff-based system, or?
No. I'm not going the route of tariffs. I know those are almost impossible in the economy we have. Plus, we are members of WTO and so on.
Right.
I'm just saying, let's have free trade, but with a free trade in balance. And there are many ways to do it. There are 2 ways to bring this about without imposing any tariffs. And they are both within the reach of the president. You don't even need Congress for this. One is, which is a very simple one. Many times in the past, when a country had a trade deficit, they would impose quality controls on the products coming from surplus nations. I mean, did you get what I said?
Yeah, although your microphone is a little far away from your mouth, so you're fading in and out.
Okay.
But it sounds like what you're suggesting is that by regulating trade, that we can do this rather than by taxing trade.
That by imposing, that's right, we are not going to place any restrictions or through tariffs or other things. We could just say, and this has been done quite often in the past by countries that were having deficit problems, they would simply impose higher quality standards for goods coming from the nations which had trade surplus with them.
Right.
So we can say, all right, we need better quality from cameras coming from you or cars coming from you, and unless, and you can do the same thing on our products. We don't mind. We just want to have our standards upheld, and those countries which keep having surplus with us, we just have an excuse to reduce their imports from them.
Right. But how do you do that when, I mean, most of what's in an iPhone, for example, is actually made in Germany and is a fairly high-quality stuff. Japanese imports are quite high-quality products. I mean, 30 years ago, the stuff was junk, but it's not anymore.
Well, as I said, it's not that they are necessarily of bad quality. You are just using an excuse because you want to balance your trade, and you don't want to use tariffs because they are illegal.
Right.
And so this is just an excuse to reduce imports from nations that have huge trade surpluses with us. Germany is not a problem. China is, South Korea, a lot of Asian nations have huge trade surpluses with us, and some of their quality is not up to par also. And the president can do it himself because there are bodies under his control, like we have this Food and Drug Administration.
Uh-huh.
They regulate the import of food from many nations. If food is not good, then they would say, we can't take it.
Right.
So in the same way, we can regulate the import of some manufactured goods and impose higher standards on goods from those countries that have high trade surpluses with us. And this was done quite often in the past when a country had balance of trade problems. And that's one thing we can do, and that's a very simple thing to do. And another thing is that we can have two types of exchange rates, one for our exports and the other for our imports. For this, the Federal Reserve is needed to do. Like China is accumulating our currency, and they keep their currency cheap, so they can export a lot to us. So
right.
Our Federal Reserve can buy their currency and keep our exchange rate low relative to the Chinese currency and reduce the prices of our exports to China.
So by monetary policy, basically.
Yeah, exactly. That's why the Federal Reserve it should come in.
Right.
In this case, this will be a dual exchange rate, and again, it has been tried by many nations, including, by the way, Germany,
sure.
Right after the Second World War, because they had also at that time big balance of trade problems, and they tried this. Italy has done this. India did it for many years.
Very
China
interesting.
is doing it right now.
Hang on just a second, sir. We will continue with more with Dr. Ravi Batra in just a moment.
This is the Thom Hartmann Program.
Check out his latest book, The New Golden Age. Also, Greenspan's Fraud. His website, Ravi Batra, RAVIBATRA.com. We'll be back with Dr. Batra. Welcome back. Thom Hartmann here with you. And Dr. Batra, you're still on the line with us?
Yes.
Okay, great. So what about the doing, my understanding is that Germany does this probably better than anybody else, imposing a value-added tax at every stage along the way of manufacture in the United States, and then on export, reversing it out, which is basically a negative, 15, 20% tariff, and on imports, that because there's no VAT tax added to them, adding it at entry, which is functionally an import tariff, and the spread between the two could be as high as 30-some-odd%. What about that?
Well, certainly we could do that, and that's not illegal at all according to the WTO rules. But this would require new legislation. And
Yeah.
I want to write a book in which you can bypass Congress and say, we don't even need you, and we can end unemployment in 2 years without going through Congress. So there are a lot of things the president can do himself, and he is beginning to do that. For instance, he is going to raise the minimum wage for any government work used by contractors. So if the rise in the minimum wage will increase consumer demand right away, and that would be very helpful in increasing demand and hence production and hence employment. The minimum wage is now close to what it was. It's now almost at the lowest in 30 years because prices have been rising and minimum wage has not kept up with them.
Right.
So the purpose of my book is simply to show that how we can end unemployment without new legislation, and the president and the Federal Reserve alone can do the job.
It's a remarkable idea that just the executive branch and the Fed could end unemployment. The Fed has two mandates. One is to reduce or keep low inflation. The other is to keep low unemployment. Do you think? Have you seen any indication that that your suggestions are being seriously considered by folks at either the White House or over at the Fed?
Well, there is so much politics everywhere. I mean, about a year or two ago, I talked to Nancy Pelosi about my ideas, and she was so excited. She was going to call Ben Bernanke the same day.
Yeah.
And she tried, but it didn't go anywhere. So that's why I decided to write a book on it and show and address directly and show it to Mr. President, to our president, that it can be done very easily without having to go through Congress. And I'm sure if he doesn't have to go through Congress, he would love it.
Yeah. Well, and that's the big problem he has is anything that has to go. Anything that has to go through Congress, the Republicans are trying to block because they want his presidency to be a failed presidency.
And that's right. They can't end it now, but they want him to fail. Yeah. So
yeah.
Nobody or no black again tries to become a president. I think something like that may be behind it.
Oh, I think that the racist part of the Republican Party now with Cliven Bundy and whatnot, we're starting to see it even visibly. But yeah, certainly it's a big piece of it. Dr. Ravi Batra, we'll be right back in just a minute. It's 20 minutes past the hour, and be sure to check out Dr. Batra's website, ravibatra.com. We'll be right back. Welcome back. We're talking with Dr. Ravi Batra, an economist, professor of economics at Southern Methodist University, SMU, international best-selling author of The New Golden Age, The Coming Revolution Against Political Corruption and Economic Chaos, and Greenspan's Fraud, How 2 Decades of His Policies Have Undermined the Global Economy. His website, ravibatra.com. He's working on a book on how we can end unemployment in 2 years in the United States. We've talked in the past, sir, about just kind of basic economics, a basic understanding of how our economy works and how most Americans don't understand the economy, and they hear these talking points about, we all, the number one priority should be reducing government spending, and that's the best way to cut the debt, and cutting the debt is more important than dealing with the trade deficit, and blah blah blah. And I'm wondering if you could just kind of give us a intro to macroeconomics and how does the economy actually work?
First of all, if we create many jobs, a lot of jobs, that itself would sharply reduce the budget deficit.
Right.
The question is what should come first, the reduction of jobs or the reduction of the deficit? And I think it should be the job reduction. And I suggested 2 ways in which we can do it, balancing trade. There is another way we can also help the job market, and that is by bringing the price of oil down. And that can be also done very easily by the president himself. If we were to end speculation in the market, in the oil market, and that can be done by just simply increasing the margin requirements for oil speculation from the current 6% to 50%, which is the requirement to speculate in stocks and shares. So if we apply the same requirement to the oil market, then speculation will end overnight, and overnight the price of oil will sharply go down. And that is very important to increase jobs in the economy, because as oil goes up, it's like a tax on the consumer.
So that's interesting. Speculation being a big problem. Can you talk about inflation? I had somebody call yesterday, and they said, why do we have so much inflation in the 70s? And I said that my understanding was that it was caused by a shortage of a basic commodity, oil, which drove price to oil, and that echoed through the economy. It wasn't that Richard Nixon or Jimmy Carter went on a binge of printing extra money. Correct me if I'm wrong.
Well, actually, it was initially done. It happened initially because the oil shot up almost 500% or so. But then they printed a lot of money to fight this very bad recession in the 1970s. And at that time, if you to find an answer for any question in economics, just look at supply and demand. So if supply does not rise much, but demand does, then prices will keep rising. And that's what happened in the 1970s. Supply fell sharply because of the rise in the price of oil, and demand, they supported demand by printing a lot of money. So demand was ahead of supply, and so prices keep rising. This time around, supply is not a problem. It's not a problem because China is ready to supply as much as we want from them. And they will lend us money to buy their goods. So this time supply is not a problem, and we are printing a lot of money to support the economy, but there's no inflation. The reason being, first of all, there is not enough demand, and secondly, supply is plentiful. So always look at supply and demand to answer any question in economics. And so when printing money sometimes will create inflation when you can't increase supply. But right now, the whole world wants to send goods to the United States, so supply is not a problem, demand is low, so inflation is not occurring. But that doesn't mean there is no inflation in the economy, and it's not hurting us. Money has to go somewhere. Whatever they are printing, it has to go somewhere. It's going into asset markets, so it's causing asset inflation, not the CPI inflation.
Right.
So the asset inflation, like in terms of huge price of oil, jump in gold price, jump in the price of raw materials like aluminum, copper, and because of all that
and the stock
rise in
market.
price, also the recession is not ending.
Right. And the stock market is going up too. Is all of this just funny money? Is this?
Most of it is, well, no, all of it is funny money, because the stock market has no business rising in an economy where you have just 2% growth.
Huh.
That's the trouble, the growth is so low, and all the government money and the Federal Reserve money is going into these commodities in the stock market. And in the past, recession would end in two ways. One was the prices of raw materials would come down sharply. So as costs came down, businesses could easily increase output and hence hire people. Now those costs are not going down. Oil is at $100 per barrel. Look at the shallow recession of 1997. That shallow recession brought the price of oil down to $10 per barrel. Now we have the worst since the Great Depression, and the price is $100 per barrel. So how can this employment recession, or how can it really end when these raw materials are not getting cheaper at all? Things that support an economy are not there. all we are doing is printing money, and the money is creating inflation, if not in CPI, elsewhere.
Yeah. So, are you predicting a crash?
I think crash is bound to happen, whether this year or next year. It is going to happen because any little thing can go wrong, and the house of cards will come down again because we have another stock market bubble.
Right. Okay. Well, let's after the break talk about that crash, what it might look like, how people might protect themselves, and what politically we should be doing about it. We're talking with Dr. Ravi Batra at ravibatra.com.
You're listening to the Thom Hartmann Program. Call 866-987-THOM.
His website, ravibatra.com, his most recent best-selling books, The New Golden Age and Greenspan's Fraud. Welcome back. Thom Hartmann here with you, and Dr. Ravi Batra. Just hang on just a second here. I got to close a window. And Dr. Ravi Batra on the line with us, economist and professor of economics at Southern Methodist University, international best-selling author of The New Golden Age, The Coming Revolution Against Political Corruption and Economic Chaos, and Greenspan's Fraud, How 2 Decades of His Policies Have Undermined the Global Economy. Dr. Batra, welcome back.
Thank you.
It's great having you with us. So we were talking just before the break about the possibility that, or the probability of a crash, that this economy is built on bubblegum and baling wire. How might this play out in your mind, in your opinion? What should we be looking for? What are the things that would be early warning indicators that a crash might happen? And how could the average person who has, their retirement in a 401k or something, protect themselves against these kinds of economic disasters? I know, rich people have hedge fund managers, and they love crashes because they can buy at the bottom and ride them all the way up. But the average person seems to get screwed. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, the thing is that the economy is very unstable. It's running on debt, consumer debt, government debt. It's running on debt, and there is not much consumer demand and even investment. So when an economy is very unstable, any shock to it can really send it into a crash. Like, for instance, now Putin is creating trouble with Ukraine. Right. If it gets out of hand even slightly more, there could be a crash. That's the whole trouble, because there's so much leveraging out there. After all, when the stocks are rising like that in a bad economy, it means that a lot of people are borrowing money and investing it in stocks. And any little crash can just boomerang, because then there will be margin calls as the investors meet margin calls. There is bigger fall in stock prices, and on it can go. Mm-hmm. So I wouldn't be surprised if there is a crash again by the end of this year. And it's also 7 years from the recession in 2007, and there is normally a 7-year cycle. And if things have not been fixed in those 7 years, then the next 7 years can be awful. Mm-hmm. So that could happen too, So we could go into a very bad recession again, because we have wasted our resources all these years and have not introduced any meaningful economic reform.
Yeah. For years, I've subscribed to an investment newsletter. It's put out by the Aiden sisters, the Aiden Forecast. And, for long ago, they were saying, we're now in a commodity explosion, get into gold and things. And then they said, now the stock market's going to go up, start getting into the stock market. And more recently, they've been saying, get out of the stock market. And I'm badly generalizing, and I don't mean to be speaking on their behalf. In fact, actually, let me take it out of the context of the Aiden Forecast and just say, I read a bunch of different investment sites, and many of them are saying the same thing. Move into things like government bonds, like TLT, like bond funds. Move into things like the German mark or the British pound. Put a quarter of your money into U.S. dollars, just into cash, and only keep a small amount of money in the U.S. stock market, because As much as it may go up, it is definitely going to go down at some point. I realize you're not an investment advisor, but does that sort of strategy make sense to you?
I think so, because you want to be in risky assets only when you have a sound economy. And the economy is wobbly. Any little thing can really set it on fire. So, and it's purely running again on debt. So I would not take risks with my money, especially if it is retirement money like 401k plans. Like, remember what happened last time. So it could be worse than that, because we have wasted so many resources. At least last time we could increase our spending sharply, government spending could go up sharply and fight it somewhat. This time we don't have that defense left. How can you increase your deficit even more when the debt is running at $17 trillion now?
Right. And the reason why we don't have that option is largely a political one or an economic one or both?
It's both, because we have used up all those resources. How can you bring down interest rates anymore?
Right.
I mean, that was one way to fight recession,
Yeah.
to bring the interest rates down. I mean, you can't bring them down anymore. So we have used up all our options, and oil price still remains high. Suppose you have really bad tensions between Ukraine and Russia, oil could go up even further.
Sure.
And that itself could cause.
Yeah, especially since about a third of the gas that goes to Europe is coming from Russia across Ukraine. In terms of some possible solutions and plain, just with general ideas, I wrote an op-ed yesterday for we did as a daily take, and it's published over at Truth Out, pointing out that Germany, France, Sweden, there's actually about a dozen countries in the world right now that have guaranteed minimum incomes. Most of them are fairly small. They're in the U.S. dollars, they would be on the order of $2,000 to $12,000 a year. Switzerland is voting on $36,000 a year as a guaranteed minimum income. It's almost certainly going to fail. Alaska, since 1976, has had a guaranteed minimum income. It averages around $2,000 per person. So a family of five gets $10,000 a year, 3 kids, mom and dad, minimum. And what this does is it reduces poverty, it increases demand, it provides a stepping off point for people who want to be entrepreneurs. When you combine it with a national health care system, it really liberates people who want to be entrepreneurial and stimulates the economy. Do you, in your opinion, is the idea, and Thomas Paine, of course, was the first to propose this in his book Agrarian Justice back in the 1780s, is a minimum guaranteed income a good idea or a bad idea?
Well, this will be a great idea in the context of the United States, but not with Europe. They have too many such ideas, such things, like they're guaranteed in Germany, for somebody who's laid off is guaranteed 2 years of pay at 80% rate. And so a lot of people then shirk work, and that's why historically the unemployment rate in Europe is even higher than that in the US, because a lot of people simply just don't want to work as they get so many benefits from the state. So, see, in the United States, the minimum wage is far below labor productivity. So here it would work like magic. But because productivity and wages have to be in certain proportion to have a high level of employment. Right. If you have time, I could give you the logic behind that. Because you want a balance between supply and demand, and the main source of supply is productivity, wages are the main source of demand. So if you want a balance between supply and demand, which is what we need to have a lot of jobs, then wages have to be very close to labor productivity, which is the case already in Europe. So if you were to increase that wage rate even more, there could be problems. Right, whereas in the U.S., this idea will work wonderfully.
Yeah, in the United States, we had some productivity and wages tracking each other for most of 200 years, but starting in the 1980s, I would say with Reaganomics, I'm not sure what you would identify as the cause of it, but Reagan's war on labor, we saw this decoupling, and labor price, the price of labor, wages have flattened since 1980, yet productivity has continued to rise at the same rate it was during the previous 50 years.
Exactly, that's what's happening. With rising productivity, supply keeps rising, but with wages stagnant, demand is not rising at all. So then the government has to step in to spend money to create artificial demand. And also they induce consumers to borrow money through low interest rates, so consumer borrowing will create artificial demand. And this way they have been maintaining balance, but now even that balance is not being maintained properly. So wages have to be in a certain proportion to productivity. In the United States, this will be a great idea.
Yeah. So because our wages have been flat for 30 years, the demand has not been growing, except that it grew through using credit. We've got $1 trillion in student loan debt, almost $1 trillion in credit card debt, and then it also grew through government spending, hundreds of billions of dollars a year, particularly in military spending, Iraq war, Afghanistan war, trillions of dollars in demand. But these are artificial ways of doing it. So what we need to do is go back to seeing our wages go up. Is that the essence of what you're saying?
We have to follow policies, market-oriented policies that automatically raise wages when productivity goes up. This is not just a question of fairness. I mean, if you become more productive, educate yourself, you expect higher wages.
Right.
It's not just a matter of fairness, it's also a matter of sound economic policy, because if there is supply is ahead of demand, that means there's overproduction, and overproduction always causes layoffs.
Right, and the layoffs then produce this long-term unemployment that we have. We're talking with Dr. Ravi Batra. We'll be back in just a moment. His website is ravibatra.com. He's the author of, most recently, The New Golden Age and Greenspan's Fraud. His website is Ravi Batra, Ravibatra, professor of economics.com, professor of economics at Southern Methodist University. We'll be right back.
You're listening to the Thom Hartmann Program. Visit thomhartmann.com for audio and video archives.
And be sure to check out Dr. Batra's website over at ravibatra.com. Welcome back. And Dr. Batra, I mean, perhaps this is a political question, and if you think so and it's not your area of expertise or you don't want to comment on it, feel free. But I'm just wondering, how is it that we have had flat wages for 30 years while we've had rising productivity, and the American workers know something's wrong? Why have they not? Why has there not been a discussion of this in the larger media? Why is this common sense stuff that you're talking about economically, supply and demand, wages and productivity, why is it not being discussed? And how did this whole supply side thing? Gee, if we jack up supply, if we increase productivity, we can flatten wages. Demand is irrelevant. That was pitched during the Reagan administration. How did that take hold, and how is it still alive 33 years later?
Well, that's because the wealthy control politics, they control everything in society. There's a lot of corruption in Congress. And so nothing gets done unless things are desperate. And things were desperate in 2008 and 2009, and the president lost a great opportunity to do something really, to introduce some real reforms. Now things are not that desperate. With all that credit boom, government spending of money, okay, things are plodding along. But I think they're going to get desperate again, and then some real reforms will be introduced.
Yeah, well, that's the essence of the argument that you make in your book, The New Golden Age, isn't it?
That's right. That's exactly. And remember, in that book, I had written that a deep recession would start by the end of 2007, and then it would go on and on. Either we are stuck at the bottom or it gets worse, but we won't come out of it unless we have genuine economic reforms. And that's what has happened ever since then.
Yeah. Do you think that genuine economic reform can be driven through this political system, or is this going to take a populist revolt?
Well, that's the essence of this new book. I don't think the president is the problem. He has his heart is at right. He has had bad advisors, and of course Congress is not cooperating. So that's why I want to show him through this new book, that you can do it all by yourself, completely bypass Congress. Even the Federal Reserve can be bypassed, and he can do it all alone, because there are agencies under his control that can bring down the price of oil, that can bring down the interest rates to the consumer. You know, the banks are still charging 15% interest rate on their credit card loans, whereas they are paying 0% to the Federal Reserve for money they get. But the president on his own can do something to bring these rates down. I will show it all in this new book, and we don't need Congress. So I think we can do something about this unemployment in a hurry.
Yeah. When do you expect your new book's going to be out?
In 2 or 3 months. I'm about to finish it soon, and then in 2 or 3 months it should be out.
Yeah. When it does come out,
if the publisher say that, sometimes these publishers say, well, they take minimum 6 months, then I will publish it on my own and bring it out very quickly, because I think it should be out before the congressional elections.
Yeah.
And so let the people see what can be done.
I agree. When it comes out, come back on this program and we will promote it. Can you hold on just a minute?
Sure.
We'll be right back. It's 10 minutes before the hour. We're talking with Professor Ravi Batra, Southern Methodist University professor of economics and author of The New Golden Age and Greenspan's Fraud. RaviBatra.com is websites. We'll be right back. Thom Hartmann here. I'm coming to Portland on May 2nd to the First Unitarian Church in the Main Street Sanctuary, Fuller Hall. I'll be giving a talk starting at 7 p.m. about my new book, The Crash of 2016. The United States is in the midst of an economic implosion that could make the Great Depression look like child's play. Find out what we need to do right away. Before and after the event, local groups active in the actions will be in Fuller Hall to meet with attendees to provide points of entry for the fight. There's more details at firstunitarianportland.org or ThomHartmann.com. Welcome back. Thom Hartmann here with you. We're talking with Dr. Ravi Batra, professor of economics at SMU and internationally best-selling author of The New Golden Age and Greenspan's Fraud. And Dr. Batra, in my new book, The Crash of 2016, I quote you and credit you talking about the supply and demand issue. I went down a slightly different road, though. I pointed out how in 1971 you had this fellow Lewis Powell, who ultimately ended up on the Supreme Court, publishing this memo to business leaders saying, we've got to get politically active. You know, Ralph Nader and Rachel Carlson represent a huge threat to us, an existential threat to us. Business has to become politically active, and the political activity of business has, in many ways, brought us to, whoa. Oh, Dr. Batra is calling back right now. Okay. If you can hear me, sir, we can talk on Skype, perhaps. No, he can't. Okay, he's going to call us right back. So anyway, where I was going with that is that it seems to me that there is a political dimension to this as well as there is an economic dimension to it. And I think it's really important that we consider both. We consider both the political dimension and the economic dimension. He's still dialing in? Yeah. Oh, we're dialing him. Okay, fine. And Dr. Batra has just some solid common sense thoughts on this stuff. Here we go. Dr. Batra, welcome back.
Yes,
my apologies. We were talking. I was talking about there being that prior to the 1970s, business was not involved in politics, and since the 1970s, business has gotten inserted itself into politics in a very big way since the Powell memo, and now we have billionaires buying politicians. We have politicians going to Las Vegas to kiss the ring of a billionaire, hoping that he will fund their nomination for president of the United States, those kinds of situations. How do we change a political system, how do we change an economic system that has been so corrupted by a political system, particularly when the Supreme Court keeps saying that money is, that George Washington fought the Revolutionary War to protect the billionaires, that money is somehow buried somewhere in the First Amendment?
I think it will have to be done at the ballot box. I think if the genuine economic reforms are not introduced, then we'll have to muddle through where we are. And I don't think the American electorate will take that forever. They would not want to live on unemployment benefits, which even now are not being extended. So I think a revolution would occur.
Yeah.
And by the way, I have made 4 or 5 different forecasts of revolutions. My economic forecasts sometimes have been wrong, but not the forecast about a revolution. And that's what I'm predicting. In the new golden age, the revolution is coming within this decade.
Yeah, from your lips to God's ears. I sure hope you are right, and would love to see it and even to be part of it. What are your thoughts on the European Union? Do you think it's going to hold together?
Yeah, it will hold together. They will hold together, no doubt.
And I was in Germany last weekend, and I was reading in the Financial Times that the former Eastern European countries who are now members of the EU, that they have right now their debt payment this year is over $130 billion, which is more than 30% of their GDP. How can a country do that?
Well, that's what I said. There are so many contradictions in this global economic system. Any little thing, any little spark can set it on fire. So sometime this decade, there will be a revolution all over the world.
So it could be that Estonia, Latvia, Lithuania, Poland defaulting on debt. Even much smaller economies than, for example, Greece or Spain, which could also, presumably default on debt. That something like that could be the trigger that produces a worldwide depression.
That's right. And we certainly can't forecast what that trigger would be, but it has to come because there are those 7, my forecasts have been quite often based on these 7-year cycles. And one pattern I've seen in nature is that if there is a problem and you have been given 7 years to fix it, if you don't fix it, then there is a very big collapse after that.
Yeah. Yeah, that's almost that's biblical. I mean, that's leave the fields fallow every 7 years. That's remarkable. So, with regard to the United States trade policies with the rest of the world, the president now is trying to have this. I call it SHAFTA, the Southern Hemisphere Asian Free Trade Agreement. He calls it the Trans-Pacific Partnership. But he's trying to get this new trade deal through. In the minute we have left, I'm curious your thoughts on TPP or SHAFTA.
Crazy. It is just crazy. If you want trade deals, have them with high-wage nations, not with low-wage nations. They would destroy our wages even more.
So if we have a trade deal with Germany, it brings up our wages. But if we have a trade deal with Vietnam, it drags down our wages.
That's right. Free trade should be with same nations nations with the same kind of wage structure.
And presumably environmental protections and labor standards and those kind of things? Those
other things, yes. They will count too.
Yeah. Do you think that if the president gets TPP, if this thing, there are people who are predicting it's going to pass in the middle of the night, could that be a trigger to provoke a crash?
I can't predict what a trigger would be. There are so many things that could go wrong.
You're right. Dr. Ravi Batra, it's always great talking with you, sir. Thank you so much for being with us.
Thanks a lot.
Great. Dr. Ravi Batra, his website, ravibatra.com, and his most recent book, The New Golden Age. Prior to that, Greenspan's Fraud. Brilliant reading.